уважаеми гости, предаватели, колеги, участници в предстоящата международна конференция. Радвам се да ви приветствам, макар и неформално, като домакин на философския факултет в тази импровизирана среща с професор Ед Гафни, който е участник в конференцията на 23-26 май. Виждате заглавието на същата, но още вчера след пристигането му на летището изяви готовност и желание за една съпътстваща конференцията среща с хора, които биха искали да споделят в една неформална среда въпроси във връзка с неговата работа и творчество, включително и върху един документален филм, с който професорът стана известен, "Празните вагони". Тук сред нас искам да благодаря за присъствието и на един много особено важен член на нашата конференция, не само гост, но и участник, професор Хени Лорер, която вдъхнови в голяма степен и работата на организационния екип в съпреживяването на това, с което предстоеше да се докосне в хода на организиране на конференцията. И в самото начало, в поставени пред много организационни задачи, изкучни понякога ангажименти, все още не бяхме се преживяли, не бяхме се докоснали до голямата кауза, голямата идея, която събира толкова много гости в България в седмицата на светите братя Кирил и Методий, така че празникът ви ще бъде на голяма степен продължителен през цялата седмица. Познавате професор Лорер, надявам се, от някои документални филми или по-скоро от един много силен репортаж, извършен по BTV. Тя е с много силни интервюта в българското радио, в българската преса, така че след личния си контакт с нея бихте могли да научите повече и повече, в най-голяма степен и на конференцията, където тя ще говори за тези събития, които според Жак Стефан са най-черните, най-тъмните моменти от българската история. Събития, за които тя ще говори като свидетел, като жив свидетел от случилото се през годините след обнародването на закона за защита на нацията през 1934 година. Позволете ми да не ви губя времето. 43-та е вече самия процес, но след закона, който е за 34-та. Закона за защита. 40-та обнародване. Добре, ето аз ще си прочита това чудесно. 34-та е останала с подправна година, на която се събуждат като реакция богословските и църковните дейци, поне в публикациите, които започват точно 33-та насам, към до годината 43-та, кулминацията. Позволете ми да дам думата на нашия главен гост, професор Ед Гафни.
I'm going to start just by saying a few things about who I am and hope that in the time that we have to speak with one another, I will learn a lot more about who you are.
Аз ще започна с няколко неща, които ще ви дадат повече информация за това, кой съм аз, и се надявам, че в процеса ще имам възможност да научим кои пък сте вие.
I am not Orthodox Christian. I'm a Roman Catholic because I grew up from an Irish family in California.
Аз не съм православен християнин, аз съм католик, защото съм израснал в ирландско семейство.
But I am a theologian who has worked for decades to pay attention and hear and listen to the last prayer that Jesus says before he dies. John's Gospel.
Да, от години си отварям ушите за последната молитва, която Господ Исус Христос казва преди да умре.
I pray my Father that my disciples will be one, so that they may help you in the world.
Аз се моля на моя Отец, моите апостоли да бъдат всички едно, за да могат да ви помогнат на вас в този свят.
When I began my work in applied theology, it was working with Orthodox Christians in North America, Protestant Christians, Lutherans, Anglicans, Methodists, Baptists, and so forth, to improve relations between Christians, because each of our churches thought we were the only way of doing things.
Аз, когато започнах моята работа, работех с хора от всички деноминации, православни, католици, протестанти, всякакви, за да се подобрят отношенията между различните деноминации и да може по-лесно да се работи.
One of the deepest spiritual human experiences that I had in this work was being in the presence of the Orthodox Bishop of North America, Archbishop Yakovos, a truly saintly human being who was always saying the most simple and the most profound things in the same sentence that challenged me to the core to become more human, more real, more honest about the world in which we live.
Едно от приятните ми преживявания беше среща с православният епископ Яков. Една изключителна личност, един човек, който винаги намереше начин да каже нещата по най-дълбокия, най-човешкия начин, и което много ми помагаше.
I became a lawyer, and you know, grace, mercy, and law. It's a strange thing to combine, but nonetheless, the next path in my life was to study law, justice, community, these sorts of things that require careful listening to one another, or the fracturing and the destruction of respect for human dignity.
Аз станах адвокат и трябваше да уча да се съчетава справедливостта с благодатта и да уча неща, които помагат да се издигне човешкото достоинство.
And as a lawyer, I began to study about the law of the nations, not simply the law of my country, but the law also of Canada, the law of England, the law of Italy, and things like this, international relations, and then even more particular, the law governing war.
И като адвокат аз започнах да се занимавам с международно право и с правото на различни държави и с международните отношения и особено с с правото по време на война.
War. There's a song we sing. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. It was a very famous song at the time of the Vietnam War, and I sang it with great lust. I loved that song.
Да, те са пели една специфична песен, особено по време на Виетнамската война, която той така с голяма страст пел, както току-що ви изпях, която казва, че не искам да уча за войната повече.
Now, an older and sadder person, but not a pessimist, I think that was a mistake.
И сега, като съм по-възрастен, но не песимист, си мисля, че това беше грешка.
I think all of us need to study war very, very closely and know exactly what happened in war. Because if we don't, we repeat the same foolish mistakes and the same gross atrocities that occur in every war that I have ever studied.
Но мисля, че беше грешка, защото всеки един от нас трябва да изучава войната и то много отблизо. Защото ако не я изучаваме, ще повтаряме непрекъснато една и съща глупава грешка и ще допускаме същите престъпления, които се бяха случили.
So I'm going to talk, I was invited to talk about this part of my life, about three wars. One is the war between Germany and France.
Аз ще говоря по тази част за три войни в моя живот. Първата е между Германия и Франция.
And in the middle of the war between Germany and France, which begins in 1870 and ends in 1945,
и по средата на тази война между Германия и Франция, която започва в
1870.
В 1870 и завършва 1945.
Historians normally call that Franco-Prussian War, 1870. It is not. It's 1870 and 1945 with two little periods of change in technology to do a bigger and worse war.
Историците наричат франко-пруска война, която е 1870, но всъщност не, това е една много голяма война.
This is not a war of weeks. It is not a war of some months in 1870. It is a war of decades that continues to this day, but is challenged by what happens after the second of the two world wars. But in the middle, I want to tell about World War I and World War II, which are all tied up with the hatred and contempt of Germans for French people and French people for Germans.
И като цяло, значи това не е война на седмици, на месеци или една-две години, това е война на десетилетия, която продължава и до днеска. И между другото искам да ви кажа за Първата световна война и за Втората световна война и за цялото това противоречие между и неразбирателство и може би омраза от германци към французи, от французи към германци.
And in each case, with the world wars that involve all of Europe, I want to say something very important about Bulgaria, because that is the coming out of the Ottoman Empire into nationhood, almost at the same time as after the French-German War, we get Bulgaria. And then what happens to Bulgaria as it begins to imitate other European nations is that your king leads you to disaster twice, gets punished for it, and Bulgaria gets isolated and has to pay for somebody else's mistake.
И между другото, като говорим за тези войни, ще кажем и за България, защото периода, в който Отоманската империя излиза от България, съвпада с началото на тази френско-пруска война. Междувременно вашия цар ви води към катастрофа два пъти, бива наказан за това, но някой друг трябва сега да плаща за неговите грешки и България остава в изолация.
Are the Balkan wars wars that you are proud of in 2017?
Горди ли сте с балканските войни, които са се случили?
Well, it depends. If you grow up as a little Romanian girl or a little Romanian boy, you hear about what happened to your uncle and your grandfather, and it's not so nice.
Зависи, ако сте израсли като малко българско или румънско момче, ще чуете от чичо си или от дядо си какво е станало и то не е хубаво.
And what happens to the art museums and what happens to the streets when the armies have passed through is not settled in a treaty by lawyers who are declaring the war is over now, we have peace. Every war that I know, every single one, has refugees, people who are homeless, who become stateless. They don't have any papers or documents because they have to get out just to live. They must move quickly, and they have to leave everything behind except their human memory and their devastated heart, and the fact that their auntie maybe their little boy or girl isn't walking on the road with them.
И това, което остава от войната, което виждате по музеите и нататък, не се урежда просто в едно споразумение, защото всяка война остава бежанци и хора без гражданство, които нямат документи, нямат нищо, освен своята памет за събитията, които са се случили, и просто нищо друго не им остава.
What kind of a community of support and of language, a community of discourse, is it to be a refugee? Who is speaking for you? Who is listening to you?
Какъв вид общество е обществото на бежанците? Какъв език говори? Кой говори за нас? Кой се интересува от вас?
Well, if the Balkan Wars come before World War I, then one has to begin to ask who wins a war.
Ако Балканските войни се случили преди Първата световна война, тогава се питаме кой спечели войната.
The Americans did not participate in that war until the very end of it. We remained out of the war because our wisdom from the 18th century was not to involve ourselves in European wars.
Американците не взеха участие в войната до преди съвсем самия край, защото нашата мъдрост от 18 век беше да не се замесваме във войните на европейците.
And one of the most intelligent, philosophical, thoughtful presidents of our history, Woodrow Wilson, as a progressive leader, campaigned to all the people in every state that he went to, say, we're never, in 1916, we're never going to war.
И през 1916 един от нашите най-мъдри президенти, Вудро Уилсън, където и отиваше, казваше, ние няма да влизаме във война.
Within 3 weeks after he says, to the best of my ability, America goes to war in World War I.
Само 3 седмици след като той казва, че до най-доброто на моите способности ние няма да влезем, Америка се замесва в война.
Donald Trump is not the first liar in our history.
Доналд Тръмп не е първият лъжец в нашата история.
He is only the most stupid.
Той просто е най-глупавият.
To think that you can talk about war and peace by tweeting in 140 characters at 3 a.m. in the morning and expect your staff to correct your mistakes is itself a big mistake.
Да си мислиш, че можеш да говориш за войната, като си твитваш посред нощ 3 часа с 145 знака и да се надяваш твоят персонал и екип да ти поправи грешките, е просто много глупаво.
I want to thank the translator for saying this excellently in very good Bulgarian, and I hope that the tape will be delivered to the Embassy of the United States tomorrow morning so they can check what people are saying in Bulgaria about our president. So remember, no, that doesn't have to be translated. Everybody got it. So now remember, this is about Bulgaria. This is not about the United States. We're getting to it, but slowly, step by step. I have to tell you who I am, where I'm coming from. But we're going to come to Bulgaria. We started with the Balkan Wars. And who wins, which any philosopher is going to tell you, is a question too large to be answered in a single sentence. Well, the French won, or the British won. The American president took the view that the war had to end as quickly as possible, and that was his rationale for going there, to France, where the war was basically being carried on. That's a lot, but give it just a short summary.
И така, кой печели войната? Никой философ няма да може да ви отговори, ще ви каже, че прекалено обширна тема, за да отговориш само в едно изречение. И просто Съединените щати решават, американците решават, че войната трябва да свърши и затова се намесват.
Wilson proposed to Kaiser Wilhelm, the king of Germany, 11 ways of thinking about this big problem of young people in Europe dying like flies. being killed by gas, vomiting in their blood. The literature of the soldiers writing home to their parents and what they saw in those trenches is the most disgusting, horrible pain of the human in that period of our history.
Уилсън предлага на Кайзер Вилхелм 11 начина да си мисли за това как да се прекрати войната и това млади хора да умират като мухи в окопите, защото когато се връщат в къщи, това, което разказват това, което са видяли в окопите, най-отвратителното, гадно, нечовешко нещо, което може да се види, това усъкътяване и това преживяване.
Well, Wilson offered 10 other things to Kaiser Wilhelm to think about, to end the war, end it quickly, get it behind you. But there had to be all sorts of other things to rebuild a new Europe in which you would not have 10 million young men. There were very few women in the armed forces in those days, but there were some. But the soldiers, the sailors, and the pilots, again, not many airplanes in World War I, but that amounts to about 10 million on both sides, the Allied and the Axis powers.
Около 10 милиона мъже е имало общо от двете страни по време на войната и отново президента Уилсън му предлага още 10 други начина да мисли за това как да се построи една нова Европа, след като се приключи тази война.
The Germans accepted all 11 principles of ending the war quickly and moving in the direction of Wilson's principles.
Германците приемат всичките 11 принципа за кратко прекратяване на войната и придвижване към другите принципи за изграждане на Европа.
When I say Germany, I mean all of the other countries on their side too, Austria and so forth, Austria-Hungary Empire, all of that. And the reason why we have to talk about all of these nations as a world war is the elaborate system of alliances and military treaties before World War I.
Причината, поради която трябва да говорим за тази война като за световна, е изключително така развитата и напреднала система от споразумения между различни държави, която е съществувала преди войната. И когато тук казвам германците, аз имам предвид и всички, които са били на тяхна страна, като Австро-Унгарската империя, например.
In the ancient period, when you look out here and see 4th century, 5th century Roman architecture, in that time of human history, there was a famous saying about war, that if you love peace, you should get ready for war. Si amas pacem para bellum.
Като гледате тези разкопки така от 4-5 век римски тук, ще ви кажа какво поговорка е имало по онова време. Ако обичаш мира, трябва да си готов за война.
In the modern period, we changed the Roman idea completely to if you love war, make NATO, CETO, and military alliances because you're going to get war.
И в наши дни ние малко сме приенечили и казваме, ако обичаш войната, направете си НАТО и други такива военни съюзи, за да можеш да се замесиш във война.
The slightest mistake or the worst atrocity, but one single incident is all it takes to start a war when every nation is in a strong military alliance. And if one thing happens, and now we're all going to go to war because we are committed to a system that is not a community of discourse and listening and careful attention to one another, but to immediate action. You do that, I'm going to do this. And you knew that ahead of time, you did that, okay, I'm going to do this. And not only I am going to do it, all of my friends are going to do it, to all of your friends.
В един свят на военни съюзи Това е нужно най-малкият инцидент да се случи, за да може веднага да се провокира отговор на този инцидент. И то в много широк мащаб. Аз ще направя какво си, аз пък ще ти отговоря. Аз ще направя това на твоите приятели, аз пък ще го направя на твоите приятели. Защото това не е на общество на изслушване и на разговори, а общество на моменталната реакция.
She's really good. Now, think about killing a leader because you hate, or maybe just because you're crazy, the reason you killed the leader. But if you kill the Archduke, his name is Ferdinand, and that triggers all of these military alliances going to war, you get the disaster of World War I. Can anybody here name the assassins who killed Archduke Ferdinand? Even one of them? Huh? And was he put on trial? Was it proved that he was the murderer?
I think he died in custody.
You're probably the only one in Bulgaria, let alone Sofia, who could answer this question. It's not something we remember. Who did it? We remember the cousins in our family who died. All over England, all over France, you see churches that have a special altar with the names of the people, or maybe in the middle of the little town, there's the names of everybody who died in World War I. Whenever I go to one of these towns, I stop and I read the list. Because remember, I grew up in California. We weren't in that war until the very end. And we buried our dead in Europe. We did not take their corpses back to the United States and put up monuments to World War I. But when you read these monuments, it's always about God, glory, honor, wonderful things in the two major countries that won the war, the United Kingdom and France.
Да убиеш лидер, например, Фердинанд. Знае ли някой кои са убийците на Фердинанд? Господина може би единственият човек в София или в България, който веднага може да отговори на този въпрос. Обаче, когато убиеш лидера, всички тези съюзници, те автоматично веднага се включват и какво имаме? Започва една война. И казва сега, когато ходя по църкви, по села, аз винаги чета списъка на всички тези хора, защото за нас войната, това са нашите близки, които са загинали в нея. И ние ще помним тях, а не тези, които са убили лидера. Защото това са хора, които са загинали в Европа. Ние не сме взели телата им в Америка. Те са останали тук и затова аз винаги чета техните имена. И когато четеш, винаги става дума за Бог, за слава, за чест, все хубави неща. Но те са загинали.
Now something about Ottoman Empire, Turkey, the shift from Ottoman Empire after World War I is that it doesn't exist. It comes to an end. And the French and the English make sure that new ways of governing in the world will be arranged by the English and the French. The Middle East becomes their playground, cut into straight lines in the desert. Anybody here ever been in a desert?
Когато Турската империя, Отоманската империя представя да съществува към края на Първата световна война, французите и англичаните решават, че те ще правят новия свят, те ще определят правилата и Близкия изток се превръща в тяхната детска площадка, така да се каже, за опити, разделена с прани линии през пустинята. Бил ли е някой някога в пустинята?
We still carry the burden in the world of World War I because of the arrangements that were made in the Arab world by the British and the French. And then afterward that, we come into the American period of hegemony, but I want to talk about Bulgaria as what comes out of World War I in a moment. Just translate
Ние
that.
все още носим товара от споразуменията и ангажиментите, които са били поети между англичани и французи. После ще говорим за американска Германия след Втората Световна война, но сега искам да кажа нещо за България.
World War I has a hidden war. A war that is denied that it ever happened, and certainly no responsibility for the killing of 1.5 million people. And the pictures that I assign my students to get is because nobody in the United States has a curriculum in their elementary school or their secondary school to learn about this war. So they come into the college where I am teaching and they have never heard of the Armenian genocide unless they are an Armenian.
В Първата световна война има една скрита война и никой в Америка не учи за тази война в училище и после идва в колежа, където аз преподавам и никой не е чувал за арменския геноцид, освен ако да е арменец.
Both of the world wars had dirty wars, secret wars. Wars that were never discussed in any community of discourse with any of the citizens of those places, whether it was Nazi Germany or whether it was the emerging Turkey. There was no discussion in the parliament for what to do about that. And that is exactly what happened in World War II with the Jews here right down the street in the Sobrania.
Всяка от двете войни си има скрити мръсни войни, които никой никога не обсъжда. Не е имало дискусия за тях в парламента. Независимо дали това е прохождащата турска държава или нацистка Германия, или това, което се е случило с евреите в България.
It is not simply that these two gross genocides, the Shoah and the Armenian genocide which preceded it, are secret wars. Geheimnis on all the documents out of Berlin, is that they are dirty wars, they are illegal wars, they are immoral wars, they are unjust wars that go against the first and most important principle of international law about warfare. It is not don't kill the messenger. That is an important principle because the diplomat may be running across the field with a message to give to the other side that might end the battle differently. So you don't shoot the messenger. That's an important principle. But if you don't shoot the messenger, you don't shoot your mother either. And you don't shoot the Madonna and child with a little baby. And you don't kill them because there is no just way of describing that in a community of discourse in which people can begin to understand why you would want to kill your mother and your brother or your sister. You can't even begin to have serious moral discourse about that, but that is what happened in both wars. A hidden, dirty war that we call not homicide, but genocide. Because it defies all the thinking of the ages about responsibility for crimes to begin to fathom why you would want to kill an Armenian because he or she is a Christian, or why you would want to kill a Jew because he or she is a Jew. As soon as I say the word because in that sentence, something is going on in your heart, in your mind to say, cause? That's not a cause. That's not a reason. That's not reasonable. That's irrational. That's a lot of words, but again, it doesn't have to be every single word. It's just trying to get the feel of what one does when you try to become a peacemaker.
Тези войни, геноцида на арменците и на евреите, те са мръсни войни, защото са водени против правилата за водене на война. Понеже си има правила за водене на война и когато дипломата тича с бяла кърма през бойното поле, ти не убиваш пратеника, защото той може да носи една новина, която да прекрати битката и да свърши до там. Когато искаш да убиеш майка си или брат си, ти не можеш да го обясниш, защото няма такива принципи, които да обясняват защо искаш да убиеш брат си или майка си. В едно общество, в което хората си говорят и си изслушват, ти даже няма да можеш да започнеш морален разговор за смисъла, като никой няма да те слуша. Това може да бъде причина, защото ти просто не убиваш малки деца или Мадоната с детето в ръцете, понеже няма такива правила. И всъщност това е война без принципи, затова тя е мръсна и не е убийство, а е геноцид.
So finally to come to Bulgaria. What is Bulgaria's role in all of this? Well, Bulgaria is not regarded in Western Europe as a great power. That term is reserved for two empires, England and France, not Spain. Their empire is long gone through revolutions in America. Not Portugal. Their empire has disappeared. It's only England and France that it continues with this empire idea. And to do their empire, they need to punish the little nations that make mistakes, rather than admit their own gross mistakes. Did the Germans use gas illegally, immorally? Yes, they did. Was it denounced, repudiated, and so? No, it wasn't. England immediately started to develop their gas. And British gas is not better than French gas or German gas. You die in your own puke and blood, all the same. It's an atrocity, it's a war crime against soldiers. But worse yet is the difference between World War I and World War II and what it does for people like you and me and Sofia. Go ahead.
И сега искам да кажа нещо за България. На България на Запад не се гледа като на велика сила. Има само две велики сили, две големи империи – Франция и Великобритания. Не е Испания, не е Португалия, техните империи са залязли. Само тези двете – Франция и Великобритания. И, например, използването на газ по време на войната, това някога било ли е разисквано? Някой обсъдил ли го е? Подложил ли го е на някакво наказание на съд? Не, напротив, другите почнали и те да използват, да не останат по-назад. И сега идваме до България.
Remember, I told you about 10 million soldiers, French, German, some American soldiers, not very many, not even 200,000, but every single human counts, but in terms of the gross fatalities of World War I, there were very few American casualties. There were very few American military casualties in World War II. The big, huge difference between people dead after World War I and World War II is the number 10, and doing it 5 times, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million. The historians now have had to revise the number of the dead in World War II because we didn't know what was in the archives of the KGB and the state archives of what was then the Soviet Union. And what Stalin was doing inside of his borders against his own people now puts it more like 55 million. What do you call the starvations of the Ukrainians? Except the genocide against the Armenians. To kill a person by hunger is still to kill a person. And I don't care whether it's the Turks doing it to the Armenians or Stalin doing it to the Ukrainians. To kill a person by hunger is a terrible way to die. And to kill them because they are a human being that doesn't agree with my party or my political ways of thinking is a war crime.
Каква е разликата между Първата и Втората световна война? Първата са загинали 10 милиона души, във Втората може би 5 пъти повече, но не можем да кажем точно, защото никой не знае какво в архивите на КГБ. Какво Сталин направил вътре в тяхната държава. Като, например, да умориш от глад украинците. Защото да умориш човек от глад е отново да убиеш човек и това си е геноцид. Независимо дали го правиш на арменците или го правиш на евреите. Да убиеш някого с глад е ужасно престъпление и това е военно престъпление.
There is more awareness in Bulgaria about the Armenian genocide than there is in the United States and in the United Kingdom. Why is that? Because you interacted with the Turks. You heard the stories. Maybe you saw some of the pictures. And what I do with my students, none of whom, well, of course there's occasionally, I have an Armenian student, and she knows all about it. But what I send them for their first assignment is find 3 pictures on the internet of the Armenian genocide. And they go to what? I put it on the way, A-R-M-E-N, and then they're very good at getting pictures. They stick them on their phone and do the whole thing, and within a half an hour they have the 3 worst pictures. And they have to pick one to write to me about. And they don't know what an index card is. May I borrow that for a minute? I'm not going to keep it straight. Just this size. We call that index card. I don't know what you said, but it has to fit like a Twitter thing. Just so many words. What's wrong with this picture? Sorry. Not a big long essay, just something that will fit there. Pick one picture from the Armenian genocide and tell me what you think is wrong about that picture.
Вие в България знаете повече за арменския геноцид, защото сте си общували с турците. Може сте виждали някакви картини и снимки от този период. Но моите студенти и изобщо хората в Америка, в большинството от тях нищо не знаят. И едно от първите задачи, които аз давам на моите студенти е да ми намерят само 3 снимки в интернет за арменския геноцид. Те са много добри в интернета. След около половин час намират една така горе-долу толкова голяма снимка. И аз им казвам, пак също пишат само с няколко думи какво е това, което е лошото и ненормалното в тази картина, която виждат.
They have the same assignment for the Shoah. They have heard about that in high school. The Holocaust is an education industry in America. We publish dozens of books every month or articles. It's an academic industry to talk about the Holocaust.
Те получават същата задача и за Холокоста, само че Холокоста е направо академична индустрия в Съединените щати, защото десетки книги се публикуват всеки месец, тъй че не е проблем да се намери материал.
But I use the same technique. Find 3 pictures that you think are really dirty, really disgusting, and tell me what's wrong with them.
Обаче аз използвам същата техника и казвам, намерете ми 3 снимки, за които мислите, че са абсолютно наистина много мръсни и отвратителни и ми кажете какво е отвратителното и лошото в тях.
What I get on the index cards forms the curriculum for the next 2 weeks. They tell me what we should be talking about in our small little community of discourse. They set the agenda of what matters to them, the things they're puzzled by, the things they want to know more about.
И това, което аз получавам като текстове на тези картички, формира програмата за следващите 2 седмици. Това са нещата, за което те биха искали да говорят, нещата, които ги озадачават, нещата, които искат да се дискутират.
And in their questions, their inquiry always discloses the things they're most scared of, the things they're afraid of, that might happen to them. And all of a sudden they begin the act of thinking about morality and differentiating that which is good from that which is evil, which for them is a pretty vague thing that is to be quickly gotten by, well, you do your thing, I do my thing, and you don't bother me too much. That's about the standard of morality amongst many American teenagers. They don't have responsibility for anything, so why would they care? And it's getting inside of that universe that has enabled me to think differently about war.
И това, което излиза от целите тези неща е, това, което ги плаши най-много, че това може да се случи на тях. И изведнъж им поставя въпроса да излезнат малко от това, което е типично за морала на тинейджерите в Америка. Не мисля ли си в моите работи, аз няма да се меса в своите, обаче този въпрос, че това може да се случи на тях, изведнъж поражда от тях съзнанието и желанието да говорят за моралността на тези неща.
Now I'm going to end by saying a few things about Bulgaria and what I learned here when I came.
И сега ще завърша, като кажа няколко неща за България и за това какво научих, като дойдох тук.
And first of all, it was to learn how to communicate to Jews in Spanish and to hear things back in Ladino and to learn how to sing their songs.
Първо се научих как да комуникирам с евреите в Испания, как да пеят техните песни.
It's not that there were none. Thank you. Yes. The songs of abandonment, the songs of leaving your home behind in Spain, the songs of no one caring about you and not wanting you except the Muslims here, the Sultan. And then when you look out at Svetlana and you see the Mosqueta and the same line and the synagogue just behind it. It's a very interesting picture of Sofia that where the people, were the Muslims in charge of this part of the world, that welcomed the Jews of Spain.
Много интересно да чуеш техните песни за това как трябва да оставиш дома си в Испания, всичко, което си имал. И идваш тук, и тук мюсюлманите, те приемат евреите. И много интересна тази картинка на София, да видиш тук джамията и отсреща синагогата и как мюсюлманите, които са отговорни за тази част от света, приемат евреите.
So Bulgaria was for me, an Irish Catholic from California, a place of discovering in a deeper cultural way the connection between these three religious communities. That when they were expelled by the Catholic kings of Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella, they had to leave everything behind and start a new life. And the Sultan here, we don't know if he actually said these words, but in Italian the saying is, "Se non è vero è ben trovato." If he didn't say it, well, he should have. It's a nice story. This is what he said. He's, sitting in Constantinople or Istanbul, and he says of Madrid, why would a king take one of his greatest treasures and throw it away to enrich our kingdom here? It sounds strange, but that's what happened in 1492. The king of Spain got rid of doctors, philosophers, scientists, and the Sultan here in this part of the world said, come and make your home here. You will be safe here. No one is going to bang on your door in the middle of the night and kick you out.
И през 1492, когато кралица Изабела изхвърля евреите от Испания, и Фердинанд, изхвърлят евреите от Испания, султана тук казва, не е доказано дали го е казал, но така се казва, аз не мога да разбера, защо империя като вашата ще вземе най-голямото си богатство, ще го изхвърли навънка и ще го прати в тая част на света. Обаче, добре сте дошли, заповядайте, защото там има лекари, философи, адвокати, всякакви хора. Той просто ги посреща тук, като се чуди защо една империя се лишава от най-голямото си богатство и така го хвърля на другия край на света.
So the first lesson that I learned here in Bulgaria is something that's very, very similar to Irish culture, hospitality. And that I discovered in two places in this part of the world, Palestine and Bulgaria. The opening of the door to a stranger in trouble is very characteristic, and it always has tea in it, whether it's in Ireland or Bulgaria or Palestine. There's always a cup of tea that has to be made immediately to put in the hands of the stranger whom you open your hearts and your doors.
И първото нещо, и това, което научих в България, беше гостоприемството, което също като в Ирландия и в Палестина е много характерно. Отварянето на вратата за странника и на сърца за странника и една чаша чай, която е приготвяше на невестата.
The second thing that I learned in Bulgaria is to be doubtful, or to be at least inquiring about the category of the great nations.
Второто нещо, което научих в България, е така да проявяваш съмнения относно така наречените велики нации, поне да си задаваш въпроси.
The United Nations Charter identifies 5 such countries. It's not England and France after World War I running the League of Nations and punishing Bulgaria for making stupid wars in the Balkans and betraying the Romanians and King Carol and King Ferdinand and all of that. Because war is never a child's game. War is always an act that has evil, harmful consequences. Nobody said that more plainly, or more clearly, or more forcefully than President Jimmy Carter when he received the Nobel Peace Prize. War, he said, may sometimes be necessary, but it is always evil and never a good. Maybe a necessary evil, I guess is what he's saying. And then he adds immediately after that, and we will never make peace by killing one another's children. So Bulgaria knows that in the way that its soldiers go about the horrible act of war and refrains from doing things that they are ordered to do. There are many stories that I discovered along those lines, and it picks up immediately from the hospitality things. I found many, many stories, because as a filmmaker you have to talk to a lot of people and find the best, the most wonderful story that goes into the film. But it means you have to listen to lots and lots of stories. And I discovered Bulgarians here who were ready to open their doors to hide Jews, whether they were in mountainous areas or if they lived in Burgas, they put them in with a Christian family and give them a different name. They didn't want them to become Orthodox Christians. They knew they were Jews. But they wanted to give them the protection of their home. Who is the great nation? Germany, Russia, United States, China, France. That's what the UN Charter says. I began to think very differently about that role as an American when I looked at some of the wars that my country has been involved in since 1945 to the present moment. And I looked to what the restraint of some of the Bulgarian soldiers that I interviewed, including a wonderful colonel that lives here in Sofia, and he's in the film telling the story of Bishop Kirill of Plovdiv, of whom it is said that when the government of Bulgaria sent in secret police into Plovdiv to arrest the Jews of that town, which they did between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning, and take them over to the Jewish school to be taken on a Bulgarian train to go to Treblinka to be murdered by gas. See the same story? Gas. Why gas? Because it's cheaper than a bullet to the back of the head. To make Bulgaria pay for the trains that will transport unwanted Jews to the northern part of Poland, 1,600 kilometers, is economically costs less than to have German soldiers on the front line shooting people one after the other in the back of the head. An economic rationale is explaining all of this stuff in Berlin. Great country? Well, at the present moment, frankly, I think Germany is one of the greatest countries of Europe with respect to hospitality and protecting human rights and human dignity. And it would take an East German like Angela Merkel to faced down some of the tremendous economic difficulties of Germany in unifying after World War II, and to stand up for the human rights that are available not to a person because he or she is a German, but because he or she is a human person, worthy of respect, worthy of dignity. And that costs a lot, and it means a lot of changed ideas. So, hospitality of the Bulgarians to the Jews. Hospitality, not simply in 1492, extends to the crisis of 1943. I can show you the very little place that I went with Rabbi Asa, and the encounter of this rabbi, the only Bulgarian rabbi in the world, going back to that little town and seeing the woman who was still alive at that time, who was ready to support this little boy, and all the arrangements that were made. These kinds of stories, I think that's the greatest. Not the size of your Air Force, the size of your Navy, how many nuclear submarines you have, how quickly you can destroy any city within range. You know, I mean, this is the dream of North Korea, to have a missile that will go way far away and destroy somebody's city. At that point, I began to think about my theological training in Rome. I was there in the 1960s when the Pope, a simple Italian peasant from the north, had been trained by his father to believe that the mountain just behind their village, the name of the village was under the mountain, Sotto il Monte. And his dad used to tell him, Giovanni, you can take any path you want to go, but next Saturday you have to go all the way to the top of that mountain. And it doesn't matter, you won't get lost. If you just keep going, all the paths lead to the top. In that way of thinking about the community of concern, you're not sending a child into a journey that is perilous. You're reassuring them that every step will be one more way of getting to the top. And then you can see things more clearly. And you realize there are others going on a different path and getting to the same place, and you have lunch with them, and you sing little children's songs, and so forth. In that moment of recognition, I remembered what happened between my country and the Soviet Union to cause the world to be in peril one more time, but now with two great menacing nuclear powers. The only country that has ever used a nuclear weapon to destroy a city is mine. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, August the 6th and August the 9th, 1945, I was 4 years old. And every year now in my life, when those 2 days come around, they are days of repentance, they're days of quiet, they're days of reflection, to think and to study war, so that we don't do it again. But in Bulgaria, I must honor you for your hospitality and for your courage to stand up for people who were not wanted, who were thought to be disgusting, and all the horrible propaganda, misinformation that Germany spread always gets involved in inferiority by using animal metaphors to describe another human being. They're rats, or they're you know, this kind of language. And at the first sign of its appearance, that's when we need to have our ears attuned, to be careful and attentive to the beginnings of hatred and to the destruction of a community of care and a community of concern and a community of discourse. If you're not listening to the other, you can call them any name you like. And I suppose a drunken teenager can do it and think that, you know, it's just normal, it's fun. But when it's tolerated and allowed to go on, that is the seedbed of what I think in this autobiographical sketch of the world that I've offered you is the moment in which we need greater humility and greater attention to one another in order to be able to sing songs like Avio mi querida, quiero la vida, quiero la vida. Are you going to sing it for us? ¿Tú puedes cantarlo? Sí.
Su questo pensando per questo che mi sta ascoltando.
Sì.
Той иска да вие. Гледаше бега, но преди това иска да кажа за него какво мисли, за да може и вие да ме разберете. Ще го кажа на който си.
You want to say a word or two of what she was telling us?
It is a very, very important secret because we started the war between you and the auditorium. It will not be very, very, very severe war. Only between us. Do you agree? ¿Estás contento?
Yes.
Muy bueno.
Well, you can see how my life has been changed by coming here to Bulgaria. To make this film, I had to get inside of your story and what you did here to protect Jews from harm. It's a magnificent story. And I wanted, at least through film, to enable the survivors to have the chance to tell it, because survivor testimony is so strong. Do you want to say something in Bulgarian now?
Yes, maybe.
Yes, maybe. It's impossible to get word for word translation.
I will just briefly. Okay. The essence. Накратко, това, което той разказваше, беше, че иска да поздрави България за нашето гостоприемство към хора, които са нежелани били евреите и мразени, като тук вмъкнам в разказа, че хартата на ООН приема 5000 нации, България не е сред тях и ги изброи Русия, Китай, Германия, Франция, Съединените щати и каза за какво те да са велики. Някои от тях спасили си евреите. В процеса на разказа вмъкна това, че неговата страна, че Съединените щати са единствените, които са употребили ядрено оръжие, за да убият други човешки същества на Хирошима и Нагасаки, и че всяка година на тази дата това е ден за покаяние и за размисъл, за да не се случи никога повече. Другото, което каза, че просто изключително очарован от историите на българите, които са спасявали евреи, от истории на български войници, които са отказвали да изпълняват заповедите, за да спасят българските евреи, за това как са християните са подслонявали евреите в своите жилища, просто за да ги спасят от натоварването им на български влакове, които да ги закарат в Полша и там да ги убият с газ. Защо с газ? Защото с газ е по-евтино, отколкото да ги застреляш с куршум отзаде в главата. И казва, защо сте велики? Имате ли ядрено оръжие? Колко ядрени подводици имате? Да имаше ядрено оръжие, това е нещата на Северна Корея. Как така да разруши някакъв град от 3 милиони хора на друго място. И многократно се върна и повтори, че това, което него изключително му харесва, е гостоприемството на българите, които се успели да защитат българските си евреи. Филма, който той прави, иска да изтъкне точно това. Как българите са спасили тези хора. Тук спомена и какво казва Джимми Картер, когато е спечелил Нобеловата награда за мир, че войната може да бъде необходима, но тя е винаги отвратителна и лоша. Независимо от това, че е необходимо в някакъв случай. И сега ще продължим с...
The film is called Empty Boxcars, and we're trying now to get a version of it into high schools and libraries throughout Bulgaria, because it's a film of Bulgaria for Bulgarians. The title, Empty Boxcars, was chosen from the headquarters of the war against the Jews. It was on the Lindenstrasse in Berlin, was the headquarters of the RHSA, Reichshauptamt Sicherheitsamt. And Adolf Eichmann was the SS person in charge of all the operational aspects of this war against Jews, of the dirty war, of the killing of people because they are not this, that, or the other category defined in the law.
В Германия е имало специална щаб-квартира начало с Адолф Айхман, която се е занимавала с всички операции по изтребването на евреите, на тези хора, защото са евреи и са нещо мръсно и нежелано.
Hitler and Eichmann could not kill the Jews of Europe without the help of the collaborators, the French, the Dutch, the dirty operations inside of Bulgaria. But the overwhelming thing that must be said about Bulgaria, Italy, Netherlands, Denmark, is that within these countries, there were courageous people that stood up for the human in the face of great risk to their lives.
Германия нямаше да може да избие толкова много евреи без помощта на своите сътрудници из Европа, и във Франция, и в Холандия, и на други места. Обаче има изключителни разкази за хора, които се противопоставиха на това чудовищно престъпление и които помагаха за да бъдат спасени евреите.
But the title "Empty Boxcars" were in German the stamp that would come on the train list back from Treblinka or Belzec or Majdanek or Sobibor or Auschwitz, the 6 killing centers, would always go back to Berlin with the full list of the names, date of birth, address, occupation, and gender of every single Jew who was murdered in that camp.
Заглавието на филма всъщност означава печата, който се слага на списъка с имената, възрастта, датата на раждане и професията на всеки един евреин, който е бил убит, и на тези влакове, които идват от 6-те центрове за убийства и отиват обратно в Берлин с този списък на всички убити и печата, който се слага. Това ще бъде заглавието на филма.
When it got there, Eichmann's secretary literally had a rubber stamp. She put it down good and hard to get red ink on it and put it on the train list. Leere Wagen. The wagons were empty now. That was the code word used to describe the success, the military success of the mission. That many number of Jews had been murdered in one of the death camps. So I chose that title for the film to counteract the Bulgarian tendency to think only of the 50,000 Jews who were saved from that mission. That is itself the way that the film ends, in a very glorious way with trumpets blowing. Fantastic. It is to be celebrated and known throughout the world what Bulgaria did for Bulgarian Jews. But we must also look at the dark, horrible reality of the Bulgarian secret police rounding up at ungodly hours of the morning and marching those Thracian Jews to their death on Bulgarian boxcars all the way to Vienna, and then from there to Treblinka, where 11,393 Greek and Macedonian Jews under Bulgarian control were arrested by Bulgarian soldiers and put on Bulgarian trains to be murdered. There is this story, in short, of goodness and evil, and the same story, with the fragility of goodness in the balance. And to understand and accept the reality of both of those things is to accept the importance of this story for our very complicated lives. I'm often asked, no, it's okay, you don't have to worry about translating. I often ask the rescuers, the people who are willing to put their life at risk to save a Jew from going to the death camps. Why did you do it? I never, ever got a piece of paper or a long statement. Well, with things like, they were in trouble. Or, oh, they were my neighbors for 20 years. And I will never, ever, ever forget the woman from Amsterdam who got on her bicycle every single morning and rode outside of the city to find a new farmer, a different Dutch farmer, from whom she could get 8 potatoes to feed Anne Frank and her father Otto and the rest of the other members of the family for that year and a half when they were in hiding in Amsterdam. I don't know the name of the Dutch person that turned in the Frank family and caused Anne to die 2 weeks before the war ended. I don't know that name. It's not a significant character in human history. But the woman, Miep, who kept that family alive every single day at risk to her life, struck me as a wondrous soul. And when I dared to ask her the question, why did you do it? It was the most powerful answer I ever heard. She looked right into my eyes with puzzlement and simply said 2 words, wouldn't you? So I repeat those words now. From her to me, and now from me, from her to you. Wouldn't you? That's the only question we're left with at the end of these stories. They're stories of great courage. I don't know the answer to that question. I was a little boy when these things happened. I sure hope I would have the courage. But when I came to here to Bulgaria and encountered such people, it encouraged me. It made me more full of hope and responsibility for my life. So that's a gift that I have received from the Bulgarian people and that I gladly give back to you. Thank you. Also, I want to say thanks to whoever made the Bulgarian vodka. It's really excellent quality, and thank you for your help. Well, anybody have a comment, a question? Please.
First of all, it was a pleasure to meet with you and hear you speak.
Yes.
I wanted to ask about your opinion on this middle period in Germany in the 1920s. With the Weimar Republic.
Right.
What is your opinion? What kind of country do you need to have in order to allow the terror of National Socialism?
Well, did you hear it well enough to do it in Bulgaria? She asked about the period of the 1920s. He asked about the period of the Weimar Republic in the 1920s.
Става дума за Ваймарската република, когато преди да даде фашизъм, национализъм, нацизъм.
I offer only a hesitant reply, but it has to do with the terms and conditions of ending a war that do not end the war. The Versailles Treaty that the historians say ended World War I, ended it in a way to make the war of France and Germany go from 1870 to 1945, not 1870 to 1920, a war of 50 years. It continued for 25 more years because of the terms built in to the so-called Treaty of Peace. They were so fraught with finger-pointing and blaming of the Germans as though they were the only culprits in the war, that the normal price of a loaf of bread, let's say 1 mark for a loaf of bread, would be a lot of money. That would be a very big loaf to feed a lot of children. Could jump in a single week to double the price, and then within a month to 10 times the price for a loaf of bread. And 100, so what the government did in the Weimar Republic to reply to that is not to pay reparations, you know, with gladness to rebuild Europe, but to pay it with resentment and going to the printing press and driving a huge inflationary spiral of cost of goods that made it impossible for Germany ever to recover. Remember that Hitler did not come to power through the normal process of persuading people about his program. He came to power by an appointment of a minority power to take over in a situation of chaos, of economic disaster that had been wished upon Germany by the great powers of England and France, without the United States now. Wilson's principles have been repudiated. America was not part of the League of Nations. It went into its period of isolation, and there was no consultative body that was correcting the mistakes of how to deal with the Weimar Republic and a sensible economic arrangement. I think that the German-French War came to an end with people like Roger Schumann. And, well, the three countries that really made it happen were France, Germany, and Italy. And, of course, Benelux, Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg, saying, we don't want war anymore. It's the way that the 6 of us are going to get along. And they defined that with respect to 3 aspects of the economy: coal, steel, and nuclear energy. And made it impossible for any one of those 6 countries to control the price of those manufacturing products. Without coal, steel, or nuclear energy, what kind of modern war can you do? It was their way of saying we are going to use the economic restraints of 6 countries behaving as though they are a community of intentional purpose, and that was capped with the Treaty of Rome, with now having an inner and outer, the inner 6 and the outer 7, forming an agreement of free movement of persons, goods, and capital. And eventually Schengen, and eventually Bulgaria being one of the 25, the 27, and who knows what's going to happen to the LEV, whether you ever join the Euro, who knows? There's lots of questions that are open. But Germany is not going, Bulgaria is not going to improve its future by making war against Romania. It's just not in the cards anymore. The people that talk that way speak out of the great fear that is, or sometimes a nostalgic pride when they see the Bulgarian flag. That's all it takes for them to go off on a nationalist impulse that we Bulgarians have received the short end of the stick a lot, and we've been punished a lot. I hate that. I want to stand up for Bulgaria, and we need a strong leader who keeps these crazy, Syrians back in Syria. We don't want them here. All of that talk arises out of our fears. And in the Weimar Republic, you get it written large, big, gross letters like that, of what it's like to be scared after a war, and what it's like to be irrational and not listening and not paying attention except to your fears. If you do nothing but pay attention to your fears, I don't think you'll cross the street. But if you have a community of care and concern, and you can share your views. Well, I don't know. And I'm not at all a scholar of the Weimar Republic, but it just seemed to me that the way the war ended was not an end to the war, but a guarantee that it would recur with greater force and violence. One of the pictures in the film is Ribbentrop and Molotov in Moscow signing the Treaty of Non-Aggression. And you have never seen, in the moment in which the photographer cut, here's the two foreign ministers at the table, and Molotov has already signed it, and Ribbentrop is looking very, very earnest German, very serious. But Stalin, standing behind him, has a smile from this ear to this, he is Happy Joe. He's really in a very comfortable zone. Oh, thank God, the Germans are never coming here. I get to do my 5-year plans until the cows come home. And, well, of course, we know that was a lie, too. And I think maybe I'll close with a Hitler quote. There were 4 generals in Hitler's high staff who, when Goebbels announced, the second in command, the guy that got very big after, I forget his name, he was the Air Force. Yes, when Goering gives the thing, all by winks and nods, there is no piece of paper, there's no document in which Hitler announces, okay, now remember what I said in 1939? If those Jews think that with their banks they can start another war, what's going to happen to them is a big surprise. They're not going to control the world. We're going to get rid of all, and the word that he's used is vernichtung, the annihilation of the jüdische Rasse in Europas. That's the promise in 1939, and it's exactly on the anniversary date of his coming to power. There are all these anniversaries for Hitler, a crazy guy like that, always has to celebrate it. So that's the threat he makes. And then he's confronted in 1941 when Goering gets the word out that we got to get the SS making the war against the Jews. And 4 of them approach Hitler and tell him, we really should not be doing this. We're soldiers. We're not trained to kill civilians. It's going to have a devastating impact on our troops. And if we lose this war, the world will never forgive Germany. Hitler doesn't take a week to think about this. He replies immediately. Number 1, don't worry, we're going to win the war. You guys are the smartest generals, and we're going to win this war, so don't worry about that. And as for the world getting mad at us if we kill the Jews, who remembers the Armenians now? He answers the question with a question. But it is not the kind of question that leads you to further, deeper resources in you to become more attentive, more intelligent, more reasonable, and more responsible. It's a pseudo-question based on hatred and propaganda that I fear the world is now getting more and more perilously into the habit of repeating the same stupid mistakes, which takes me back to the guy at 3 a.m. tweeting out his nonsense. So it's a very challenging time to be alive, but I leave you with Hitler's question, who remembers the Armenians now? Maybe you ought to teach your kids something about what happened in that war. It would be a good thing to study that war and learn all about it. Because the people who deny the last step of a genocide is its denial. It didn't happen, and all the bases are covered because they always say, and if it did, it was somebody else who did it. So you got all the possibilities covered. Never happened. And if it did, somebody else did it. We Turks, hey, never happened, so please don't. And there was a war going on. There must have been too many Armenians running in front of tanks and machine guns. No, they died of hunger in the desert. Check it out online. You can find those pictures. Just put those 2 words into your Google or whatever engine you use, and you'll know as much as starts a line of inquiry for you too. Thank you.
Сега накратко, каквото мога да ви кажа. Отзад напред ще почна, за да не забравя началото. Накрая. Това, което беше много интересно накрая, беше, че геноцида, последното нещо при геноцида е отричането. Геноцид не е имало такова нещо. Ако е имало, не сме го направили ние, някой друг го е направил. Арменци, сигурно са умрели от глад в пустинята. Просто това е последната фаза на геноцида. Относно Ваймарската република и как така е дошъл нацизма, накратко, това, което каза, че всъщност Версайския договор, с който уж мирен договор, с който завършва войната, е така направен, че тя не може да продължи още 20-30 години, защото е заложил такива принципи, че цената на парче хляб, с което да нахраниш семейството си, може да се удесетори в рамките на 1 месец. И какво става при това положение? Започват да се печатат пари и да се случва една хиперинфлация. И всъщност, когато Хитлер идва на власт, той не е избран, защото убеждава хората в своите принципи. Той е буквално бил назначен да се справи с един икономически хаос, който тогава е владел страната. Тогава вече се случва и това основното споразумение въглища, стомана и ядрено оръжие, без които нищо не може да се случи, ако нямаш въглища, стомана и ядрено оръжие. Между другото, това е началото на така наречената Обединена Европа. Сега това са първите договори между Англия, Франция, после и страните от Бенелюкса се включват.
Предлага Шуман.
Шуман, да, точно така го предлага. Това е началото. Всъщност тогава се залагат принципите на бъдещата Обединена Европа с тези договори на Европа като една голяма държава, в която и България сега, нали, ту ще влезе в Шенген, ту няма да влезе в Шенген. И общо взето имаше още много неща включени, но това просто не може да се запомни. А преди това, което каза за филма и което е интересно, че името на филма, този печат, за който говореше, че секретарката на Айхман имала един гумен печат. И когато се върнат тези вагони с списъка, тя слагала този гумен печат, на който казва празни вагони. Доколкото разбирам, филма ще се казва празни вагони. Тоест, край, избити са всичките вътре, вагоните са празни. Това е тайната дума за успешно приключената акция. Вагоните са празни, трепахме и всичките ви. Та това е всъщност името на филма, който се снима.
She's fantastic. Thank you.
Le quiero ingressar. Искам да го благодаря. Que estamos juntos, че сме заедно. Tuvimos la possibilità di sentire la sua parada. Че имахме възможността да чуем неговата реч. Agora quero dizer pouco por el processo mas ir se pode dizer ou se não pode dizer. Искам да кажа малко за процеса Айхман, но го питам, ви вас да перметер a dizer? Dizem sim, não. Would you like to permit me to tell something about the Eichmann process?
Sure.
I would like to take your accord.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Poзволявам. I shall speak in Bulgarian after that. Translate. Преди всичко искам да кажа, че това, за което говори, той е изключително интересно и изключително важно. Но това, което бих допълнила, че тази дума геноцид е един неологизъм. Не го давам. Много ли е това? Неологизъм и се състои от две части. Геноцид. Ген, което значи група от хора, и цит, което значи смърт. Така че геноцид е думата, която е заложена и която е била употребена, когато са започнали масовите убийства, свързани с Холокоста. И има автор тази дума, само че забравя как се казва. Един еврейски даже той е от Полша и той въвежда това понятие, което е понятие с много дълбок смисъл. Аз съм следила много отблизо процеса Ахмед. Преди всичко съм била винаги много изумена как след толкова много години, през които той се е крил. Мосад, тази израелска организация, която е търсила да намери всички, които са се приютили в Южна Америка преди, за да може да ги подведе по някакъв начин да търси отговорност за всичко, което се е случило с евреите по време на Втората Светован. Те го издирват, макар че той се, разбира се, с класични операции, друга физиономия, както и много други имаше, още няколко души, които са били хванати, и го отвеждат в Иерусалим. Отвеждайки го в Иерусалим, обявяват, че той ще бъде съден. Разбира се, поставят го в една затворническа килия, която е един много хубав апартамент. И в деня, когато той трябва да излезе пред съдиите, които са в залата, те го поставят в една камера, която е стъклена, но стъклата са непроницаеми за каквито и да е било патрони. През цялото време обвиненията, които се сипят върху него и които са абсолютно установени, той е отговарял по един абсолютно нагъл начин. Айде да... Аз не съм знаела, ама това се е случило. Имало е газови камери, имало е крематориум, имало е газ-циклон, имало е красни, имало е болести, имало е бременни жени, имало е доктор Менгене, който е правил опити с жени, да може да се направи безплодни и така нататък. Той през цялото време е отричан. А в залата са присъствали много голям брой сървайвери, хората, които са оцелели и които казваха, ние нямахме имена, имахме номера. Всеки един имаше татуиран номер. Is it long story?
No.
To make the long story short?
No. So the story is short, long anyway.
In any case, you will do your film, and it will be probably interesting to know some words about your destiny.
Right.
Yeah. And така, в четвъртък ще ви разкажа повече. Но сега, понеже той ще помина заедно, и ще ви да кажа неща, които съм следила, които съм чела и които са толкова ужасяващи, колко са били всички мъчения на концентрационни.
He never repented.
Yeah.
To the end of his sin.
I
He was so loud.
Yeah. I shall tell you.
Why do you do this?
You will not cry.
The final decision.
I will not. I have not the feeling that when I will try to explain explain to you my story, you will not cry. If you will cry, I shall stop to tell anyway. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for coming.
Да не ме чуе жена, аз да го кажа не е толкова съществено, защото може би Бог да го прости, няма да ме кори. Ама той е малко рискована работа. Have you understood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Ahora
God.
quiero la vida más, no menos. Ahora quiero la vida más.
I'm afraid if your wife will know that you are telling me that you want to leave because of my son, it will be difficult life for you.
We'll sing together to go right to the top of the church.
You see, I'm trying to tell something which is sad,
Yeah,
and something which is not sad.
yeah, we're joyful. Yeah.
Няма нужда да превеждам.
Thank you. Thank all of you for coming. Are you going to come to the conference on Thursday? Sorry?
How long will the videos?
Well, I leave on Saturday, but what you want to say a word about the conference?
When you
No, you tell where it is, when it is. Bachkova is Friday, it's being filmed there. But,
How long is it?
Huh?
How long is the film?
It's 90, well, it's 83 minutes, but there's a version that I cut for television that is less, it's like 53. And unfortunately, that one is not in Bulgarian subtitles. The feature-length film is, I have it with Bulgarian subtitles, but that's 90 minutes, or it's 83 minutes. It's not 90, but it's meant to be a full length. And it starts with the story of the law. When Bulgaria imitates the German law and puts in place something that is completely un-Bulgarian, the idea of racial purity. It's just, look around, have a look. It's not built. That's a stupid American idea. What is racially pure? Hitler didn't invent racial purity. That was an American fiction. That we were going to have the white race running everything because we were superior. But look all the trouble it's gotten us, that mistake. It's just incredible. But for then Hitler to take the American idea, put it into the law in 1935 in Nuremberg, and then the secret agents that walked over, they're not very bright people. Alexander Bell was not, one of the great Bulgarians that you wanted children to learn about and so forth. And he comes back with a very literal Bulgarian translation of the Nuremberg Law. And that's what was debated in the Suffragettes. And the bishops stood up for it, against it. The unions, almost all of the unions did, the lawyers did, the doctors did. It was an outpouring of Bulgarian civil society saying, that's a dumb law. And it doesn't give us any security at all. It's not a national security law. It was called the law for the security of nations. When we say defense of the nation, we really, what we're talking about. Do you think there's a Holocaust industry? For sure there is a national security industry of people that make trillions and trillions of dollars of the replication of weaponry and making sure that we have more wars and the rest of it. That's the ultimate folly of America today. And sadly, Israel is now the number 3 exporter of weapons in the world. So it's just, we're in a crazy moment in human history. And we We need the courage of those Bulgarians. They were on the right track in 1940 and saying no to the king. And, oh, look at that. That's a real sweet picture. No, look at there. Don't look at me.
The politicians.
Quiet on the set. There's an important picture being taken.
May I ask you?
Yeah, sure.
If we'll go to Hollywood, this.
Да.
Що ще хора в Холивуд?
Да благодарим на